and somebody called Onyinye.
All right. I assume that Onyinye works with you, Adli.
I'm not sure it's Onyinye, my colleague. I think it's her intern.
Okay, see.
Yeah, because she's not in the office. So I'm guessing it's the intern that's on.
Okay.
Okay, so we're live. So
All right.
we're live now on YouTube, and people are watching this conversation. So everyone, hello, as many as are watching, thank you for being part of the Career Corner Speaker Series with Mrs. Uwa. So I'll start by reading her profile, her bio. Mrs. Uwa Osa-Oboh is the head of corporate development for Capital Alliance Nigeria Ltd and oversees the firm's strategy and institution building efforts. She is responsible for its strategy definition and implementation, its human resources objectives and programs, as well as its external relations commitments. Prior to joining Capital Alliance Nigeria, Uwa worked for 16 years at Relational Limited, a management consulting firm. There she led the firm as Chief Responsibility Officer for 8 of those years and worked with clients on project traversing strategy and governance development, human resources consulting, culture change efforts, and capacity development. Prior to Restro, Uwa worked at various times in the corporate finance leasing department of Crown Merchant Bank from 2001 to 2006 and practiced as a lawyer in the year 1988 to 1990 with various law firms, including Dotson Akinkugbe and Co. and Stephen Adzenge and Co. Uwa holds a Bachelor in Law and an MBA from the University of Benin and a postgraduate diploma in economics from the University of London. So that's, I think, essentially that captures what you have done over the years.
Yes. Yes, it does.
Yes, it does. Okay, so we'll start with the first question. I'm sure a lot of people that are listening, are watching right now, would like to know how, when you began your career, and what the journey so far since you started.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Okay. Can I hear them, or basically?
Good afternoon.
Can you hear me?
Good afternoon.
Great. All right. It's nice to know I'm talking to people. All right. So my career started as a lawyer. I graduated from the Department of Law, University of Benin, 1987. And as you know, for lawyers, you don't practice simply when you leave university. You practice after you get your BL, which you get from the Nigerian Law School. So I got my BL in 1988, and thereafter I was called to the bar and therefore able to practice. I was in the legal profession wholly for the first 3 years after my call to the bar. That's 1988 to 1991. And then I joined the banks in 1992. The reason I made the decision then was I had thought when I studied law that I would like to teach law. But I realized that a lot of lecturers wasn't very palatable at the time. Schools were going on strike quite a bit. Lecturers were well paid. And it just didn't seem interesting. So I thought, well, everybody was going into the banks, and it seemed like a good place to at least start off a career if you wanted to be relatively well paid and not have to depend on handouts from your parents. And so I did an interview for a job in the bank, and the MD with whom I interviewed basically asked if I was new merit. Basically trying to see if I could do other things other than law. And I said, yes, I was, that I had studied physics, chemistry, biology in school, and I had passed them. And
Okay.
at least I passed my maths. So I wasn't necessarily the top of the league in those subjects, but yes, I
Mm.
was fairly numerate. And he asked me if
Mm.
I'd like to work in the credit department. And I
Mm.
said yes, which I was very happy to do, in fact, because my thought was that if I couldn't practice or teach, to work in the legal department of a merchant bank at the time would have been very boring. Then you had
Mm.
over 100 and something banks. They weren't very large, and I thought, it would be fairly boring. So working in credit was actually, a relief. So I worked in the
Okay.
credit department for 1992 to no, I'm sorry, from 1991. So so I practiced law from 1988 to 1990, 3 years. And then from 1991, I worked in the credit department up until 1996,
Okay.
when I left banking for management consulting. My move into management consulting was sort of fortuitous in the sense that it was probably one of the best things that happened. But a month before, I wouldn't have known that it was going to come, because management consulting at the time was a very nascent profession, and not many people call themselves management consultants. In fact, most of the
Mm.
companies today that do management consulting, they were more of accounting firms and audit firms. So consulting was a nascent field. But frankly, I think that was where I found my calling, because
Okay.
it allowed you to bring together various fields of knowledge. In other words, at the time, you see that I'd had two careers, one
Yeah.
in law and one in banking. And when you
Mm.
want to then make a move, one of the things you don't want is too much discontinuity. There was
Yeah.
no connection between law and banking. But
Yeah.
luckily, I was young then. It didn't make much of a difference. I went into the banks when I was, 24. So not a
Yeah.
problem. But when you get older, one of the things that you think about a career move is that you want to move from what they call adjacency. You use the principle of adjacency in the sense that something that is proximate, something that builds on what you've been doing before. So when I was
Okay.
leaving the bank after 6 years, so this was close to 10 years,
Mm.
9 years, it bothered me that I may end up doing something that will bear no relationship. So, but like I say, management consulting brings in all fields of knowledge. Your ability to read a good contract, your ability to
Yeah.
draft a good memo that captures the terms of a discussion, your ability to
Mm-hmm.
understand the financial implications of a decision you are making, or to know what the banks will finance or not finance, or even be able to deliver services to the banks, but you understand their business so you can talk their terminology. You find that the field of
Yeah.
management consulting accommodates that. And I think so. I
Mm.
was in management consulting for 16 to 7, almost 17 years actually, like Esther read. And then I will say I'm still in management consulting, though I've moved to a private equity firm, in the sense that what I do in the private equity firm is more of what I did as a consultant. I'm not an investment officer or a practitioner, but I
Mm.
help my colleagues, using my experience in management consulting, run the business better, do their
Okay.
work better, and meet the expectations of our stakeholders, better. So I hope that answers your question.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. So, I think I'm not sure. Were you able to tell us about how when you started working at Capital Alliance?
Oh, I joined Capital Alliance in 2013, February, first week of
Okay.
February.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've also sort of answered the question of how you were able to transition, from law into banking, management consulting. For people who are, interested in, moving around, they're not quite sure what to do. As young people,
Yeah.
then you're not quite sure what to focus your energies on. You probably have a lot of skills and talent.
Mhm.
What's your best suggestion? What's your best advice? How would you counsel a young person who is torn between different passions?
Okay.
Mm.
I don't think you can be torn between different passions, and I'll explain why.
Okay.
Because if you are passionate about a certain field of work, you
Mm-hmm.
find out that there will be fields of work that are closely associated, what I called adjacent to that particular field that initially you may have started working in, that even if you moved into them, you are just fueling your passion, is what people will
Okay.
call job enrichment. In the sense that I
Job.
worked on this part of enrichment. You can have job
Okay.
enrichment within that organization, or you could drive your career in such a way that you are enriching your professional experience by being able to work on various fields within a
Mhm.
particular profession or professional context. It's very rare, for instance, that you see somebody who is torn between let me talk about law. You're not
Okay.
likely to have some torn between I want to practice law and I want to teach, because the truth is, at times a good teacher becomes a better practitioner of the law. So
Okay.
you can see that somebody who will say, oh, I'm now a 40 something year old lawyer, the university is asking me to teach. No, you're not torn between two passions. It's a love for the law. It's just that in one you were expressing yourself by passing knowledge, in the other one you are fighting for causes in court. So you can see
Yeah.
that they are complementary in that sense. Yeah. But if somebody said, "Oh, you are studying law, but they want you to now become a sorry," so if a lawyer that practices now says, "I'm torn between, doing law and setting up a fashion company," then
Yeah.
I would look at you carefully, because it would be clear to me that it's not likely that you can be passionate about the two. It's either one, you studied and you are practicing law out of a sense of duty, but your real passion all the while may have been,
Mhm.
fashion, because I can't see
Yeah.
any immediate connection between the two, if you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if somebody has that kind of issue, it must be carefully thought about. And what I
Okay.
often tell people, this is a play with words, but I will tell them distinguish between a profession and a vocation. By
Okay.
the time you get up to a certain age in life, changing a profession or a career to start again in another one is a risky choice. If
Mm.
you are starting in that new field as an entrepreneur, where you will set up your own structures and you run it for yourself, it probably will work. But if it's to
Mhm.
leave, a well-paying job as a lawyer somewhere, to say I'm going to start learning how to sew in a fashion institute, there are huge
Mm.
implications, to that,
Yeah.
in terms of your status, in terms of your earnings, in terms of even the fact that you're at a disadvantage because you're probably older than most people who right from the beginning decided that that was what they wanted to do. So what I
Yeah.
tell people, once you can distinguish between your profession and your vocation, you can actually say, okay, my profession is to do law, so I'm going to continue to be a diligent lawyer, but because I have this passion for sewing, you know what, I'm going to gather some capital together and work maybe with a friend or a colleague who equally has that passion, and have them
Okay.
run this for me by the side. I will come
Mhm.
in maybe once a week, a few hours, I could spend it, in fact, an entire day on a Saturday there if I'm not doing anything. But at least I know that I'm not having to begin my career afresh.
Yeah.
But in doing that, I'm able to give expression to something that I truly, genuinely am more passionate about than even my day-to-day, job. So I think that there are a lot of permutations and ways in which people can um, ensure that they don't um, destroy what may be a fairly successful career just on the whim of going to start off something else. If you can
Mhm.
manage the two initially until that other profession becomes so successful, that other vocation becomes so successful and can then
Yeah.
absorb you in, then obviously
Mhm.
that is the wiser way. I mean, I know
Okay.
lawyers who were very good at gardening. I know Sally, one of the girls who graduated in the law school ahead of me a year or 2 years ahead. She had left the law basically and was had moved into just maybe then it was very fashion, but planting flowers, landscaping, and all of that, because that was her passion.
Mhm.
In her own case, she didn't practice law for too long. She practiced law, I could see, maybe for just a year or two before she took this on. But when you've
Yeah.
practiced law for 15, 16 years and you say, I'm going to stop now and I want to become, you might as well, it's worthwhile to say, can I do it as on the side for a while, and then eventually make the transition when it's able to accommodate my needs. because the needs of a 24-year-old are not the same as the need of for a 36-year-old woman. Yeah. I hope that makes
Okay.
sense and it answers what you
Yes,
wanted.
I think you said a lot of very important things.
But I think there's a principle. If there's a principle behind it all, I think I mentioned it in my when I was answering your first question. It's almost always best to make your career moves build on the other, so that the
Okay.
experience you garnered from an earlier field immediately
Yeah.
serves as an advantage, as you move on to
To
something
the
else.
next.
It may not be called exactly
Yeah.
the same thing, but you can see how that skill, clearly is relevant to what you are doing. I think that's usually the most seamless way of changing a career. Yeah.
Okay. For those, I know I've spoken to a number of young people, and there's always this challenge of, oh, how do I commit to the work where the organization where I'm working at, and then try to start something of my own, which is one of the points that you mentioned. So that commitment to the organization, giving your very best. I remember I went for a program the other day, and basically they were advocating that it's not good, for you to, you're working somewhere and then you're committing other hours, to something that you
Adventure.
want to earn more. Yeah. So what would you say about, that how would you, what would you tell a young person who is saying, okay, maybe this is not what I want to pursue all my life. I still have a passion outside. What's in terms of values, in terms of, I don't know, what's your advice on
On
that
that.
sort of issue? Yeah,
Yeah.
on that.
Obviously, I don't think any organization would want you while you're working and at work
Yeah.
to be spending that time on a venture that particularly, I mean, I'm at work and I'm doing something that is not my work. But my organization does not mind because, first of all, I'm not earning an income from it.
Okay.
I see that it's something that is for the good of the society, which ties
Mhm.
into the values of my organization.
Mhm.
So, and in fact, they would encourage, it's part of what I'm expected to do. But if I was possibly, like I said, let me use the example of fashion. If, let's say, while I was at work, I brought out notebooks and I would spend 2 hours designing the new um, line of clothes that I want to produce, that obviously is cheating.
Yeah.
And if you look at my earlier example, I said, when you have that kind of passion, it's at times best because you even want to be tentative, you don't know whether it will succeed or not, it's best to start it off. But because you cannot physically be in two places, that's
Yeah.
where having a partner, at times it's better to buy into somebody else or to look
Okay.
for somebody else that shares something in common. I said, why don't we set this up together? It's obvious that I'm working and I can't give you the time.
Okay.
You probably can give the time. Probably you will draw 100% of your full salary from the business.
Yeah.
Initially, I will just take profit. Maybe at the end of the year, we'll find out how much profit we have, and I take because I have invested money, whereas you have invested, time. I think
Yeah.
that's the way you can make it happen. But if you
Mm.
find out that you don't even have a partnership as such, I know people who employ people who are very well skilled in that area. I have a family member, for instance, who works in an oil company and has what I think is a successful sewing. And I don't want to call it fashion because I don't think she has a label yet, and she's not known as a
Mhm.
fashion designer. But they make very good clothes. They import most of their, at least she tries to get until this ban. They were importing most of their fabrics, and the clothes they make are like imported clothes. Now, obviously, what she has done is that she's looked for a manager who probably is a very good seamstress. Maybe
Mhm.
this person was being paid not too highly somewhere else, but to motivate this person, she's brought the person over, and the person runs that particular practice for her. Now,
Yeah.
what does she do? She provides good oversight. She has a very good storage and a good logistics system where she knows exactly what is in her warehouse, what she's
Mhm.
brought out for them to use so that she's not cheated. She has a relative who is a manager who may not be the best of sewers or seamstresses, but at least ensures that the business is not being cheated. And I know
Yeah.
on Saturdays, for instance, after her morning chores, by around 11, she goes to this place and she spends the entire day there. So and but to be fair, I will say that the more that business will grow, the more it is likely to begin to eat into even her consciousness at work. When
Yeah.
half of the time you're saying, oh, those materials I was expecting, and you're on the phone all the time, asking for where the materials are. And that's the time that most people then make that transition. If you're an ethical person and you begin to see that you can no longer give to your employer his or her just, investment in terms of
Yeah.
time and energy.
Hours. Yeah.
Yes, hours and even focus, because you could be at work but not at work. I think
That's
that is
true.
the time when, because it will also show in your work.
Yeah.
There's no way you can be that distracted that the quality and the depth and the rigor of your day-to-day work won't show. It
Mm-hmm.
won't show in it. Even if your deliverables will suffer, I can assure you that the minute that other outside business begins to eat into your attention, you will know, because your supervisor is likely to begin to raise issues around the fact that, what's happening here. And I think that even before those issues are raised, if you had any ounce of integrity, you will know that you have built that other one to a point where it now needs more of your time. Hopefully, it's
Mm-hmm.
earning the kind of revenues that can support you, at least at least to make the move.
When
And you
you.
can't give your letter of resignation. Yeah. All I'm saying is that it's not many people, not many entrepreneurs who
Yeah.
are currently on a job would have a vision and overnight resign the next day to to begin it. No, wisdom says you start it bit by bit, and then when you see that it's taking on a life and can sustain you, if
Okay.
it doesn't take on a life, that means it's not big. It's something you can continue to do by the side, because frankly that's not what is sustaining you. Yeah.
Okay.
So
So
I will never support, like you said, the violation of your employer's time or resources. Even down to, I mean, if for instance somebody wanted to write a book, I would even say, even if you had a laptop in the office, go and buy a laptop for yourself, at home. You
mm-hmm.
don't sit behind your desk and be typing, no, the resources belong to your organization. Because if I mean, using my legal brain, if you use the office's resources to develop that book, the office can say, listen, this book is my intellectual property. You used my time, because the
Mm-hmm.
hours during which you worked were hours I paid you for. You used my laptop. You did your research on my laptop. So everything you've done, in terms of
It's
intellectual
mine.
property rights, it belongs to me. And you have cases like that. So people must be aware of the fact that they must delineate between the time they're at work and their investment at work, and whatever time they then spend on their vocation.
Okay. Okay. I'm sure you must have gone through some trainings and programs, courses, during through your through the through your journey as a lawyer, as a corporate development head of corporate development at Capital Alliance. I'm just wondering, what would you advise young people?
Yeah.
What trainings, yeah, would you advise people to, sign up for? What programs would you tell them, okay, do this, to improve your career?
Okay. Okay, I'm going
Yeah.
to talk about four generic areas. They're generic in the sense that it will cut across no matter what you studied or your functional expertise.
Okay.
One of the things that every employer or every business requires is critical reasoning.
Okay.
And at times, the ability to reason critically comes from a good understanding of industry dynamics, current affairs. In
Okay.
other words, being able to look beneath the surface and understand how something operates. So
Mm-hmm.
I would advise all professionals, young professionals especially, to develop the art of critical reasoning. When you write, there are people who write a memo in one line, there are people who write a memo in two paragraphs, and you find out that they've supported that one line with all the justifications and issues that whoever reads that memo is in, wherever you're coming from, they've dealt with it. So it doesn't beg any question. Now, you could be first person who say, I wrote a memo, I asked for it. The other person wrote a memo, not only asked for it, but justified why, and even explained the risks and how they intend to mitigate certain risks. You can see that the second person has critical reasoning skills.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody sends a proposal to your company and your boss says, evaluate this proposal. Some people will say, the budget is within our budget. They are asking for 40,000 naira. We actually budgeted 50,000 naira. Please go ahead and approve. Somebody else will say, it's not just the money. Some people will look at the vendor. They will do a track record analysis of the vendor. Some people will
Mm-hmm.
look at even the proposal itself and what it covered and did not cover, and weight the risk. Obviously, the other person has critical reasoning skills, the first person doesn't. So, in terms of your ability to run a business or to actually add value to any company you work for, critical
Yeah.
reasoning skills is required. So, that will be number one. The
Okay.
second bucket of skill I think you need to work on is what we call creative thinking.
Okay.
So, the ability to conceptualize, life is about moving forward. And if everything you can work on is because that thing is in the current reality, the danger is that you cannot look ahead, you cannot conceive and conceptualize a theme or an objective, and organizations like people who are able to envision a future that probably doesn't exist, for a project, for a job.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are some people who get to a job and the job has been done the same way for 20 years. But when they get to that job, they conceive of it in a different manner and they infuse life into that job that 20 people have done or 10 people have done and done in a very routine manner. And the job
Mm-hmm.
totally takes on a life. You can see that this person is conceptual. They've been
Yeah.
able to, using their creative, thinking, they've been able to say, what's the value? How can I enrich this particular, assignment? And you find
Yeah.
that it comes through a lot in what they do. The
Mm.
other thing which I think that people will require is strong self-management skills.
Okay.
So self-management and leadership skills. So how do you lead yourself, for instance? How do you organize your time?
Okay.
How do you manage yourself so that you are professional, you are disciplined, you can be relied on to follow through. That's
Yeah.
another set of generic skills I think people require. And a fourth set of skills I think people require is just relational skills. You
Mm.
know, being a good team member, knowing how to contribute to a discussion without necessarily, creating offense,
Mm-hmm.
showing emotional intelligence as you engage with people. So I think that that's another bucket of skills. So I would say for so critical reasoning, creative thinking, self-management, and good
No.
interpersonal skills. I think that those four, at least for most of one's career,
Mm.
someone has to continue to work on your technical proficiency
Yeah.
and ensure that your technical skills remain as good as they need to be. If you
Mm.
support that with these four areas, I think you will tend to do well.
Okay. Okay. So just before we go, I think we have three more questions. There's a question here. It says, during your transition years, did you at any point yearn to delve back into law? And if yes, how did you handle it?
The truth
So,
is, the truth,
temptation to.
no, the truth is I didn't. I
Okay.
haven't, and I've never regretted the move. And
Okay.
I mean, like I said, when that MD asked me, would you rather work in credit? I didn't even
Mm.
blink an eye. It just shows you, looking back now, I can see how irresponsible I must have sounded. I mean, I haven't invested 5, 6 years in law, and somebody just
No.
says, are you prepared to do something else? And you don't even say, let me go home and think about it. You kind of
You're
say
like,
yes. In fact, not only did I answer yes, I brought
mm,
out of my bag. I said, listen, it's funny you should ask me that because over this period in the last few months, I went back to my A-level books and I did lower six and I didn't do upper six. And there was a book on economics that I wished, I enjoyed economics. And, I said, I'm going to use this period to finish that book. So I showed him the book and I said, you can see that in some ways, you're actually feeding a passion and an interest
yeah.
that I have. So I think that the thing about the law, there are some subjects anywhere in the world or professions that prepare you for anything. So lawyers could practice, but if you go to the banks abroad, you find that probably 25% of investment bankers in the US have a legal background.
Mm-hmm.
You know, public policy, you have lawyers who go in there. So there's something about the law that actually prepares you with a foundation, that supports
No.
you going to a, yeah. So you don't. So it's not a very. It's not narrow in that sense. It's not like medicine, or it just widens your mind. It builds a certain level of curiosity. I talked about critical thinking. If there is a profession that teaches you critical thinking, it is law. Because just that ability to look at a matter and say, how can I argue this through and logically? So
Yeah.
once those intellectual, muscles are developed, really it prepares you for anything,
Okay.
and I think also my study of the law probably was more of a default, in the sense
Mm-hmm.
that in, at the time I was in school, it, choosing one of the professions was important. So medicine, accounting, law, everybody, and for someone who probably felt, I like I said, I was a half science student, but I knew that
Okay.
that wasn't my forte. It wasn't my greater strength. My greater
Yeah,
strength came.
I wanted to ask. I wanted to ask. How you were able to make that decision at the very beginning. For you not to have flinched when your boss asked you the question. So you must have, at some point, you must have asked yourself, I'm not sure this is what I really, really, really want to do. You know.
Like I said, it's funny. I don't know if Nigeria had been a much more well-run country. I have a feeling that I have a feeling that I would most likely have continued with the law.
Mm-hmm.
I think I probably would have moved into the academia.
Okay.
You find a part of what I love to do up till today is to teach. I love, I engage quite a bit with making presentations. I'm invited to do this quite often, and also even as a
Okay.
consultant, part of good consulting requires, public speaking and engagement. And I think
Okay.
that even in studying the law, one of the reasons I invested so much time and energy in the law, and I did well, by the way, in the law.
Okay.
I was top. I was always one of the top students. Was because I literally read with a view to teaching. Anytime I'm reading, I ask myself, how can I explain this to the next person?
Okay.
So for me, the moving away from, and so maybe I should say that what has driven me for most of my life is intellectual curiosity, in the sense that
Okay.
I just love to learn. I love to learn probably more than I love to do, and that's
Okay.
not, but I enjoy it when I've picked up a new skill. I enjoy it when something has exposed me to something new,
Mm.
which is why management consulting was so right for me, because there are so many sciences in management consulting, from human resources to strategy to processes, that my intellectual
Mhm.
curiosity just kept on being fed. So I think that it probably had more to do with my kind of person, But like I said, if
Yeah.
Nigeria had probably been better run, I probably would have continued with the law. One of the reasons I like the law is that a lawyer will handle a case on medicine and will need to
Mhm.
understand all the elements of a good surgery in order to
Okay.
prove that client was not negligent. So for someone like
Mhm.
me, the excitement would be, oh goodness, I'm going to now have
I'm
to
learning
study.
something.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And by the time I'm
Yeah.
in court, I would obviously relish the fact that I can talk medicine as good as a doctor can, So,
Exactly.
so that's what law does. So I think law opens you up in such a way that's why Obama
Mhm.
today is the president of the United States. I mean, it opens you up to literally any field. Yeah. And there's always the knowledge that I will always be a lawyer. I mean,
Mhm.
my wig and gown are still there, you know, and so you don't feel as though you've left something that you can never come back to. You know
Okay.
that you probably can. Yeah.
Okay. We want to know challenges. I'm sure having to move through this these fields. Did you experience any challenge along the way?
Well, I would say no, funnily enough, and maybe it's just my own experience. When I moved into the bank, I
Mhm.
remember my first supervisor.
Okay.
Um, because again, I think one of the it goes back to your value system and your upbringing and your habits. I tend because I said I'm driven by intellectual curiosity, I tend to want to master something.
Okay.
And I think once people see that you are hungry and you are doing your best, you
Yeah.
find out that supervisors and organizations tend to just respect and want to encourage you. So I
Okay.
don't approach these things with levity. In fact, the minute I make a transition like that, my fear is that I will fail because I know I haven't done that thing before. And
Mm-hmm.
because I have that at the back of my mind, I tell myself, you've got to do whatever it takes to ensure that very quickly
You
you
don't
shorten
fail.
your learning curve. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
because of that spirit, particularly if you're working with decent people, they tend to
Mm-hmm.
encourage you. So I've had
Mm-hmm.
people who have mentored me as a result, who just
Mm-hmm.
took to that spirit, and that has been the case wherever I have gone. So
Mm.
even coming into private equity, I mean, I had no background in investing. Probably that was one of the weak areas at the time I left management consulting. That this entire field. But I mean, 2, 3 years after, it's been fun, and one part of the fun has been just understanding a new industry. And I think,
Mm.
like I said, because I've thrown myself into it, the organization itself, respects that spirit
Yeah.
and the fact
Yeah.
that, so I will say no. I will say for those people who ask this question, you need to just first of all do something that, like I said, builds on what you've done before. Like I said, so that it's not something that you do doesn't fuel your passion. Whatever
Yeah.
you do, ensure that it fuels your passion. So that once you bring passion into the game, it's a game
Mm-hmm.
changer.
Mm-hmm.
Once you bring passion into the game, people see that spirit and they respect it. But if you come and say it's another job, I'm just doing a job, it's dead weight, it will also work against you. So
Okay.
I think that may be the one reason why some people will find a transition a challenge, and
Mm.
not because other than, oh, the fact that you may have to learn new concepts. But guess what? Other than if the concepts are rocket science, if somebody now wants me to go and start doing algorithms like an engineer, obviously I can't do it, and nobody expects me to do that in my job. Then it would
Mm.
have been a challenge. Whatever I'm asked to learn, and this has been the case all through my career, is something I look at and I say, what, if I apply myself, I should be able
Yeah.
to get a
Give it
mastery
your
of
best.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
All right, so we'll end with last two questions. What are the top three things a job seeker should note in their CVs? Yeah.
Well, I should note in
Mhm.
their CV should reflect.
Yeah, what should it reflect? What should they pay attention to? I mean, I see quite a number of CVs on a regular basis, and a lot of times I'm a bit worried.
Yes.
So I think it would be good for you to point these things out. What do you look out for when you're looking at a CV?
Well, one of the things I look out for is just the grammar.
Yeah.
A CV where the grammar is wrong and the spellings are wrong, ab initio tells me that it isn't that, we all type and we go back and say, oh, that look at that typo, I didn't see it. But for a CV, you ought to have spent the time after doing it up to take the time to read it. And if you read it and you didn't even know that grammatical construct was wrong, you use a past tense where it should be present tense, or you misuse some words, it tells me
Mm-hmm.
that you are not very knowledgeable. And if it is that you didn't even read it, it tells me that you are careless.
Mm.
So those would be one thing I'll say. So attention to detail, and just that ability to to spot out those things. The second thing that a CV should not have are gaps. So
Okay.
I remember interviewed a lady about 6 weeks ago who 2 years was missing from her CV. She had taken
Mm.
off time from what was her core profession and gone to do interior design, and she
Okay.
found that wasn't going to be relevant to the discussion. And but I noticed it immediately and I pointed it out. She initially prevaricated, but when she saw that I wasn't going to, I needed an explanation. And I said, you know, why did you have to take that out? Even if you went to do interior design, you can only be a better professional for having exposed yourself to another, you know, field of, you know, knowledge.
Or,
Explain to people that, you know, I took 2 years off. I wanted to discover myself, and I went to interior design school. So I advised her to put it back on her CV. When you have a
okay.
gap on your CV, it means you are trying to hide something. It means you are insecure, and
Mm-hmm.
you must never, I mean, that must never be the case, because no employer is going to, because once you come in, they're going to be watching you closely. You know, as this person told me everything, you know, are they telling me what I want to hear? And you don't want
Mm-hmm.
that to happen. The
Mm.
third
So
thing I think,
really, what I'm getting is whatever you do, make sure it reflects on your CV.
I
Don't
think,
take anything, yeah.
I mean,
So,
don't take anything out. If it's a 2 week thing you want to do, you may not put it, but once it's a significant amount of time, uh,
yeah.
you should. And the third thing I think is the structuring and the flow
Okay.
of the CV. People shouldn't just write on a CV because they want to write 10 bullet points under a job heading. And
Mm,
they're saying the same thing in 10 different ways. You know, a CV should be rich, but at the same time succinct. You know, it should be
okay.
well structured, it should flow, you know, and should be well ordered so that it's pleasing to the eye. You know, the type
Mm,
fonts are not too small, you know, everything is just pleasing to the eye. So I think in terms of if your CV can, you know, have a good grammatical flow, and your various assignments are well laid out and justified, and the presentation, the aesthetics of the CV are good, I think most people will tend to look at it.
okay. All right. We'll continue the conversation on Twitter. I think we've taken quite a number. I mean, I think it was that stop at 3:30, but we'll I'll ask the other questions on Twitter as we move
All right.
along. Thank
Sure.
you very much for coming to chat with us. I actually got a lot of things, just personally as an individual. So I'm really glad that you took out your time just to be with us here, just so that you can impact more young people to
I'm glad.
change.
I'm glad. I'm glad. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ma. Bye bye.
All right, thank you.